think sometimes we really try and overcomplicate things, right? And we think that we need another app, we need another piece of technology, we need another person, like all of those things to really take our business to the next level. And we always think about client facing, right? But what if it was that secret was locked away in your back office? And today we're going to really look at how we can intentionally build a well-structured back office and gain support in various different ways. And my guest today is Louis Schlebusch, and really excited to hear what Louis has learned over the last number of years. He's been around for a long time. So excited to hear all of his insights and also how they solve this problem. Let's just get the show on the road. Welcome to Propulsion, the weekly show for financial planners and advisors who want to build better, more successful businesses. I'm your host, Francois du Toit, and every week we dive into the practical strategies that matter, from growing your client base and improving your services to developing yourself and your team. Whether you're running your own practice or you're part of a larger firm, you are guaranteed to find actionable insights to help your business thrive. So with that, welcome, and let's get into today's episode. Good morning, Louis. Warm welcome to Propulsion Live. It only took us 6 seasons to get you here, so but yeah, here you are. Warm welcome.
Oh, thank you, Francois. Much appreciated.
Yeah, man, fantastic to have you. Louis, you've got quite a long history in the profession and in the industry as well. 37 years. So you've got about I think 6 years or so on me. So I'm always playing catch up. But one thing that, you've had quite a few roles, right? And I think it's sort of just important to maybe just position a little bit, sort of just at a very high level, like what has your journey been before we get talking about all of this amazing administration stuff that you started falling in love with?
Well, Francois, that is a bit of a curveball. Thank you. And I just want to caution you to be a little bit careful when you talk about, the amount of experience I have. I'd rather prefer, talking about the last 10 years or so. It doesn't sound so bad. No, but on a serious note, I've been around since the latter part of the 80s. And I've tried my hand at being a tied agent. I had my own little short-term brokerage at one stage in my life. I joined ABSA in a managerial capacity in the early 90s, and I stayed with them for 27 years. Well, I completed my stint with them as the regional general manager in the Western Cape. And then I started this business called British Administration Services, and I really thought to myself, if you're going to start a business in this wide world, what are you going to do, and how are you going to approach it? And I thought, look, stay with what you know. And I've had a bit of a exposure to client retention within the ABSA fold, and I thought, but the best way to retain your clients is to give them good service from your back office, and that sort of sparked the idea of creating a support platform for advisors on an outsourced basis.
Yeah, amazing. And I guess this is a very, very important topic, right? And there was something that you mentioned to me before as well, just around think. And this is something that I see. I was very guilty of this as well in my business for a very long time. Is that we're so busy with the job of what we do, right? So the job of being a financial planner, the job of being a trainer, or the job of being a content creator, or whatever that is. And then there's a very long period of time probably where we are able to just do everything ourselves. And I think then suddenly one day you wake up and then you wonder why things are so hectic. But let's start at this, right? So I'm going to come back to that. So it was more a statement than a question. But I think when people hear admin support, like that's the question that they hear, then we often start thinking, oh, so someone's going to help me fill in forms. We're going to, check boxes. We're going to do those kinds of things. But there's this bigger picture that's probably missing from that. And I'm sort of keen to hear your take on that. Is admin support literally what it says on the box, or is it something much more than that?
Yeah, well, they say, Francois, life is about choices. So you can see admin as filling in application forms and getting forms signed and ticking boxes. But when I think about admin support in a back office, I think about two things. The first thing is succession readiness, and I think succession is one of the hot topics of the day. Everybody speaks about it. Not many people or not many financial advisors out there actually put the puzzle pieces together to get it right. And secondly, value in your practice. How do you actually generate more value in your own financial practice by doing proper, solid administration? And I always revert back to my picture in my own head from a high level what a advisor's practice should comprise of. And I think if you really want to break it up into something very simple, you can argue that you must get clients, then you must advise those clients, and then you must implement those solutions that you propose during the advice process, and then you must service them. Now, those four quadrants are sort of divided in two. The one is advice is a money-generating activity, and administration costs you money. So where are you going to focus? You need to focus there where your skill set leads you to, and that is probably the advice and the getting of the client's component. But then if you're not going to support yourself properly in the back office, you're going to either not be busy enough with those elements, or you're going to hurt your business by not doing the administration properly. So being succession ready is an administrative job. There's no doubt about it. Before you can even think about doing the calculation on the value of your practice, you need to get your administration in order. Now, value, in my mind, is sort of based on two elements. The one is the income streams that you have generated or that you've established over the years in your financial practice. But then second to that, the data that you keep, the information that you have, the historic record of events. Now that is equally important in determining value in your financial practice. So that's the high level thinking I have. That's what's giving me passion. That's what's making me getting up in the morning and coming to the office and following this dream.
And I mean, just on that note, so the way I'm interpreting what you're saying, Louis, is that we actually need to be more strategic when it comes to administration and the back office, and not be just operational. Because I think we mainly, it defaults to the thinking around, okay, this is just stuff that needs to get done and we need to get it done. But we're not really intentional or strategic around that because we don't see it as a value builder. Am I sort of right in summarizing it in that way? Is that sort of what you're alluding to?
I think you're hitting the nail on the head. You know, this morning I listened to Nikki and to Rudolf and also Kobus, and all three of them spoke about looking after your client and caring for your client and being professional in the utilization of AI when dealing with your client from a back office perspective. So that is totally strategic to me. If you're not going to position your back office with your client from a value-adding perspective and with a view of improving the client experience, then you are probably not in the strategic space. So it's all about strategy. It's all about what should I do given my skill set, and what should I give somebody else to do. You know, you've basically got the three options. You can do it yourself, and then cope with the capacity issues, or you can appoint your own people, or you can consider to outsource it. I think your more successful financial advisor practices out there are running stunning back offices, and I think they are certainly thinking about it strategically. But I don't think there's enough of them. I think there should be many, many more.
Yeah, and it's a difficult thing, right? Because I think there's at some point where you find yourself a little bit in limbo, or let's just say between a rock and a hard place, probably, where you sort of there maybe from a revenue perspective, and you should get help, and in your head you know that if you do that and you can just do what you do, you should increase the revenue, but it also feels like such a big risk. So I'm keen to hear just maybe some of the. I mean, when do you know, like, you should have, apart from the fact that listening to you, I'm thinking like, this is something you should do as early as possible, long before you have capacity issues. But typically, I think when there's capacity issues, now we start thinking about solutions. But what are the telltale signs that you should now be looking at it from that perspective and saying, I need to get a back office in place in whichever way? We're going to unpack the options in a minute or so. But how do I know the time is now, or probably that the time has passed a little?
It's a difficult question, and I don't really have a clear answer, except if it makes us feel better. It's not unique to our industry. I think anybody that's starting out in a business has to make a decision about how much he or she is going to spend and make this business work over and above the sales element. Now, our industry for 1 million years have been teaching financial advisors to drive sales as the main activity in the financial advisory practice. And it can't be anything else. It must be that. But I think where we have probably missed it is when you set up that business and you start thinking entrepreneurial about being a financial advisor. What does it actually take? And do I take all my commission and put it in my bank account and live accordingly, or do I only take a portion of the money that I've generated and spend it towards building infrastructure in my back office in order to enable me to raise the bar in my advice giving activities? So. Yeah, it is not an easy one. I think nobody wants to do it. It's almost, when you sit down and you write your first business plan, you need to realize at that point it is not a question of wanting to do it. It's a question of you don't have a choice. You have to do this, and it's hard to spend money, but the ratio changes over time as the income increase, the cost percentage decrease, and so it should be. But in the beginning, it's always going to be a too large a portion of your income for anybody's liking.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one of the biggest challenges is that, we feel like, especially people just starting out. Daniel Priestley talks about that, entrepreneurship is a team game, and he's never, ever started any business without a team, not even from day one when he just started and had no money. He still got somebody else involved so that there's more than just one person. And too often, again, I think it's because we often start out as in the job of a financial advisor or the job of a financial planner instead of thinking of, and even if that's still the case today, you are still building your little practice within a big FSP, for example. You absolutely have to have that business mindset and build it as a business, because the value, and I think you touched on this, which is really important, Louis, around not just sustainability, but the succession part of it. We don't always think about this. And succession, like, is something we might get to at the end. We'll see. But I just want to make this statement about it before we move on, is that, we often think about succession from our own point of view. It's my succession, but it really isn't. It's got actually nothing to do with us, or very little to do with us, not nothing. It's definitely a big part of it, but it really has to do with succession for the client, because what's happening to the clients when you finish? If you decide, I'm just calling it a day one day, what about your clients? So that's really the succession part that we should really be looking at. So I will come back. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to comment on that before we move on, but otherwise happy to move.
No, you basically just echoing what's been said earlier on the program. Care for your client. Make sure that you're giving them good service. but also give some thought to those individuals that's responsible for it. It's a role that not many financial advisors enjoy playing, and that's the administration role, and therefore often it is neglected. But you're very right. So no, I can't add anything to what you're saying.
100%. All right. So, Louis, the support options, we did mention the three, basically do it yourself, or like literally you do your own admin, and then you appoint your own people. So it's almost like both things are do it yourself. And then there's some other options in terms of outsourcing. And is this question around how do I decide now? You know, is this going to be, am I going to appoint my own people or am I going to outsource? So that decision, can you provide some guidance around how you would tackle that?
Yes, so, you know, it doesn't matter which one of those decisions you take, they all come with pros and cons. And when you do it yourself, the obvious pro or the obvious advantage is that you're in full control of what's happening and how it's being done and how it's executed. When you appoint somebody to do it for you, it has a similar kind of feeling or perception of being in control of what's happening in your business. The cons in terms of those two decisions, the first one is obvious, time that you're spending on things that you should perhaps should not be spending time on. And then secondly, if you appoint your own people, you always invariably inherit another function called HR, and you have to deal with managing people. You need to deal with managing processes, and you need to start thinking about the system that you're going to implement in your back office. That also takes time away from your core business, which is giving advice. Now, when you decide to outsource your administration, you almost have to overcome the barrier of relinquishing control. But it is not really that. You're not relinquishing any control by outsourcing administration to somebody that's specializing in it. You are trusting somebody else to do it for you. Now, any entrepreneur will agree that in your business, there's different roles that needs to be played. And if you're a small business, you need to try and play all those roles, which are very, very, very difficult. But if you decide to outsource one of those roles, you can still control it 100% by getting report backs, getting information in terms of what's been done, how it's been done, how fast is it, or how long has it taken to complete, what is still outstanding, etc., etc., etc. So therefore, whether you're doing it yourself or whether you're outsourcing it, there's those three elements that needs to receive the necessary attention. It is the people, which is probably the most important one in your business, the staff that you appoint to fulfill a specific role. But then it's the tools that you provide those staff members with in the form of a system. And a system is always designed, and remember the old saying, structure follows strategy. So your strategy determines what your system should do for you, and you shouldn't be working for your system. That's a very important element. And if you're going to be doing it yourself, you're going to be spending quite a bit of time in building that. And if that is what gives you energy and that's your passion, you do that. And I think there's many successful examples out there. But if you don't enjoy that, then it is really important to consider the outsource option. Now, outsourcing means that somebody else is doing it, but they are part of your business. They are hopefully professional because that's what they focus on and that's what they're doing for a living. And then it's up to you to position that with your customer. And I think I'd like to link on to what Kobus said about professionality and utilizing AI and all those tools out there. You need to be proud of the way that your back office is going about execution, and you need to be proud of the way that your back office is engaging with your customer base. And for that reason, you need to position your back office with your customer as part and parcel of your business, even though it is performed by an outsourced function. You will know when it is time. You will know when you're running into trouble in terms of your capacity and how many hours a day you have left, or how many hours a day you spend on engaging with your client and giving your client the care and the advice that you actually set out to do, and how you're actually generating income streams. Because we all know admin costs you money. It doesn't generate a single cent.
Yeah. So I want to get into, because possibly there's some people say, yeah, Louis, I know, I hear you. It makes sense to me. But I think one of the things that I found that, there's a few foreign concepts to this profession, unfortunately. The one is paying for something. That's on the one hand, is something that's sort of foreign, because the product providers tend to do a lot of things and give a lot of services and offerings and things for free. So we've been sort of, I'm also going to say, conditioned that way. And it's not that we're not willing to pay, but it's that we're not used to paying. So now there's this thing about try before you buy kind of mindset that I also see with a lot of things. It's like, so I hear you and it makes a lot of sense, but how do I know this is going to work? What guarantees do I have that this is going to work? And I think maybe a way for you and I to try and answer that question is to give them a little bit of an insight into, what happens. Let's just say, for example, I decide I'm going to outsource to you, to Breesh, and I want to start using your services. I think maybe it's a good idea for us. Run me through what is that onboarding process? How do you make sure, because now I have my way and obviously you have your ways and the systems and all things involved. But what does that journey sort of look like, so that people have a better idea of what to expect in a scenario like that? And Breesh is now obviously one of the offerings, one of the solutions. But what would that typically look like, and what should people expect specifically? I think in those, because I think there's also this idea that I'm going to give it to Louis and then tomorrow we're hitting the ground running, right? And then sometimes there might be frustrations when things take a bit of time. So just take us through that journey. I think that will be very helpful.
Yes, no, thanks, Francois. So everything starts with a conversation, exploring what is available from a Breesh outsource perspective, and comparing that to your own need. Everybody thinks a little bit different about how to execute in their back offices, and there needs to be a bit of a meeting of the minds. So in this conversation, you're moving closer to a point where one can say, okay, I think I understand what your need is as a financial advisor, and you as a financial advisor think you understand those models, and we call it models because we have a modular approach to providing admin services, and then move into a position where you say, I think I can use model A, B, and D, or maybe I should just start with model A, and it's all about finding each other, getting that feeling of, yes, this can work for me, and then putting your feet in the water and start trying it out. It is a menu-based service offering. However, the understanding of what are you going to do and what should I be doing is critically important, because the expectations or the management of the expectations are critical in this first process of just having a conversation. One must understand an outsourced company that focuses on doing administration has to be able and must have the capability to deal with great volumes, people that's servicing more than one financial advisor. And if you understand that, you'll come to a realization they can never, ever be your PA. So the role of a PA is so different to the role of an outsourced capability. I always compare it in this way. I say when you phone your PA, whether it's during office hours or after office hours, and she answers the phone quickly, you are quite happy, because that's what you expect of your PA. Some of us shouldn't be after hours, but nevertheless. And then if you ask her to do something, she does it very quickly and efficiently, and he or she comes back to you very quickly. Now that is giving you a sense of, firstly, control. Secondly, you can trust her or him, and thirdly, the job gets done. When you outsource to an outsourced capability, then it changes that, because your expectation cannot be immediate access and quick turnaround time. You should change your thinking to reliability and consistency. Now those two are worlds apart. So I need to decide which parts of my administration I'm going to outsource, because you can't just outsource everything especially if you don't have your own PA. The ultimate model in my mind is if you still have your own PA and you outsource some parts of your administration to an outsourced capability, which means that your PA starts playing a different role, and your expectations of the administration that's being done at outside of your business is a little bit different. So expecting quick turnaround times is great, and it's essential, but it must always be reasonable. So from that initial conversation, we shape the mutual expectations in terms of each other, because every financial advisor works differently. We have certain models. We need to stay within those models for us to be successful and to be able to provide solid services that is consistent and reliable. So, I can't stress the importance of the initial conversation, and sometimes it's more than one. It's 2 and 3 conversations that takes place, because the moment that you flip that switch and you start sending your first instructions through to your outsource capability, you must know what to expect from them. Hope it makes sense.
Yeah, it's like anything, right? Communication. Whether it's your marriage or your outsource capability, you have to communicate. And sometimes we think things and we say half of them out loud, and that's often where the misalignment of expectations obviously happen. So, I mean, it's great that starts there, and that there's absolute clarity on both ends about what the expectations are and sort of how that works. And I just want to mention at this point, we are going to run a little bit over, because I've got lots of questions still for you, Louis. If you're okay, I would like to run over a little bit. And there's quite a number of freaking amazing questions that came through from the audience, which I also want to ask you. We're not going to go over by much, but just so that you know and that people know. So are you okay to do that? Happiness. Okay. So I just want to ask one more follow-up question on this whole, how the work gets done. I mean, can you just walk me quickly through a process where I've now written a new life cover application and this needs to be processed? What does that look like when I deal with you as an outsourced capability?
So obviously that process will start with a quotation, I assume. So you would have asked for a quotation, and we do that part as well. And we do it in the way that you prefer. Some financial advisors do it through their broker consultants. Some financial advisors will do it through the intranet platform provided by a product provider. And some may have a different way of doing it. However, we follow your lead in terms of because we see you as our client, and we will engage the platform or the individual where you would normally obtain your quotation. Some financial advisors prefer to do it themselves for many good reasons, but it doesn't matter. We follow your lead in terms of that. Then there's obviously, in this day and age, there's the digital ways of submitting application forms. However, mostly an application form is not completed 100% by the time the financial advisor has completed his advice process with his client, and there's further information that needs to be obtained, and that function we obviously perform on behalf of the financial advisor. Then we submitted through the medium of choice. We receive outstanding requirements back on behalf of the financial advisor. There's some financial advisors like to receive it directly and then pass it on to us. Some want us to receive it directly and keep them in the loop. But whatever it is, we then make sure that outstanding requirements, like example, medicals, etc., is obtained and submitted. And then at the time that the policy is accepted, we make sure that communication goes out to the client after having ensured that the client is kept in the loop in terms of progress. And then normally, depending on the financial advisor's process, then there may be a compliance process that needs to be attended to. As an admin outsource capability, we do not touch anything that smells or looks like advice. We believe that is the role of the financial advisor. But a large portion of compliance is an admin function. So we can get signatures where signatures are required. We can get more information where that is required. We do the electronic filing, but we keep electronic filing in a well-defined naming convention fashion. And then the only thing that is normally outstanding is the record of advice. And then we also make sure that the commission flow and could be instrumental in removing those obstacles that prevent the commission from flowing. That is now becoming a little bit practical, but that is the way we do it. We do it normally receive the instruction in some digital format, email or maybe a WhatsApp or whatever can engage our system or integrate with our platform that we use for workflow. And at the same time, we're creating rich information and data on the system about your client, and everything is measured on a granular basis. For that reason, we can report back on a granular basis, and we can design reports in any fashion that will suit your specific need to create that feeling of control in your back office. I think that describes new business. I would need my operations manager to go into more detail if necessary, but that will require much more time.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, Louis. So I am going to step away from my long list of questions because there's some incredible questions that came through from the audience. So I want to ask them to you, but almost like in a rapid fire sense. So I don't really we don't need to belabor them, but just maybe quick yes, no, and why. So if we can do that. But the first one was Neil Phillips. So he's saying, does Louis see AI as a threat to the admin business as a service? I mean, if you listen to everything that Kobus said, it sounds like we don't need people anymore. Or won't need people somewhere in the future, but just maybe your quick view on that.
Not at all. As a matter of fact, it is a tool that any admin office needs to embrace in order to make the operation more professional.
Yeah, fantastic. Then also a great question here from Grant. Grant is asking, is outsourcing or insourcing admin support better for valuation of the practice? So is one more beneficial from that point of view?
Hello, Grant, Neil and Nell. Thank you for your question. Grant and I come a long way. So Grant, the answer is really it shouldn't matter, because if you outsource administration, the information still belongs to you and is available to you. You have access to everything, and the information is made available on request. So, if there's a valuation, the the outsourced part should be 100% part and parcel of the valuation of such a practice.
Yeah, fantastic. Then Ben is asking, how do you keep the personal touch for clients when you outsource the back office? Because somebody also said, I think it was Grant or somebody also said that, we obviously deliver our promises through our back office. So all the promises that you as an advisor make, we deliver. And I think this sort of adds nicely onto that.
Yes. I think, once again, it's how you position it to your client. So you will receive, in outsourcing administration, you will also have an administrator that you will know well by name, and your clients will get to know that individual by name. Now, the personal touch can mean a lot of things. It can mean that I'm the only one that speaks to my clients. That may constitute personal touch. However, personal touch is also leaving things to certain people in my practice who has a skill to do what is necessary. So when we talk admin, leave it to somebody who has the skill. Whether you employ that person yourself or outsource it, doesn't really matter. You engage your customer from a different angle. And all of these actions together creates the customer experience and the personal touch.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Louis. So the last question, it's more of a statement, but I think we can turn it into a question because I think it's a very important one. And I think you've touched on this a little bit just now, but let me just share this with you. So Neil also went on, he said that the problem I found with admin outsourcing was that the admin company dealt with different people at the providers that we normally dealt with. So in other words, they may have relationships in Joburg and Neil is situated in Cape Town and he's got different people. So that meant that their relationship, so Neil's business's relationship with the providers themselves suffered as a result of that. So is that a real thing? How do you mitigate that? So obviously a real thing because Neil experienced it, but I mean, is this a general issue?
Yeah, we don't do it like that at all. I think I tried to explain a little bit earlier. We take your lead. We use your broker consultant. We use your contacts within a product provider, but we also have our own networks because sometimes your network may not work for a specific situation. And then we always have our network to try as a second bite at the cherry. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, but we will follow the lead of our client, which is the financial advisor using our services.
Louis, fantastic. So as a closing question for today, one of the big things that is obviously, I mean, some people are saying like, oh, I've tried this a few times, didn't really work for me. Other people say, yes, I want to do this. Other people are saying, like there's people in the comments saying, I can't do this without you, Louis. This is how I'm able to do what I do. So you've got sort of people in each one of those buckets. But one is the one message that you would want to leave them with today to say, well, you know what, well done. Obviously, if you already have outsourced and you're getting value there, but for those other two buckets that's going like, yes, I want to do this, but I'm listening to what the guys in the middle are saying, like, I'm not sure, what would be your message to them today?
Yeah, Francois, I think back to the question of thinking about it strategically. I think that's the first thing. Think about your back office strategically. And if you decide that outsource may be an option for you to explore, find the right partner. Because, we are all human beings and some of us can work together and some of us are not a perfect fit. But find the right partner with whom you feel comfortable and with whom you feel you can, go down this path of making your practice more professional, more efficient, and do it.
Thank you very much, Louis. So where can people learn more about you and the business? I assume you're on LinkedIn and all those good places. So where can people connect with you and how can they get in touch?
Yes, please. Our website is quite extensive and you can contact us through our website. Our contact details are on there, and we are quite active on LinkedIn, even though we have been in the industry for 37 years. We're trying our best to embrace the digital world of today. So I think it won't be hard to get hold of us. Go for it.
Yeah, fantastic. So obviously, like many good things, go check out LinkedIn. Just go search for Louis Schlebusch. If you don't know how to spell the surname, just ask AI. That will definitely help. But on that note, Louis, thank you very much for the insights. There's quite a few things that I still want to talk to you about, because I think there's quite a number of questions. But I will chat to you off air. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for being on the show and for taking the time. Really appreciate it. And I wish you a fantastic weekend.
Thank you very much. Thanks to everyone.
There you go. Thank you very much for everybody who stayed a little bit longer. Really appreciate it. If you came back to watch the recording, thank you very much as well. So next week, we don't have a show because it is Good Friday. So we will skip next week, but we'll be back, I believe, the week thereafter, which is probably the 25th. So we'll see you back then. But until then, have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy what it is that you do in life and in business. It's so important. And just look after yourself. And stay curious, most importantly, and continue to raise the bar. Love you all very much, and thank you very much for joining us today. Thanks for joining us on Propulsion. If you found value in today's episode, then there's plenty more where this came from. You can find all our previous episodes right here on the podcast, as well as on our YouTube channel. And talking about the YouTube channel, we go live every single Friday at 8 a.m. until 9 a.m. and we host many different guests, and we also talk about very interesting topics. And on the live show, there's also some incredible segments hosted by some of the most well-known and influential financial planning professionals. So you are most welcome to join us every single Friday. Put it in your diary and we will see you there. And on that note, also please do check out propulsion.co.za/community for all of the goodness and learn more about how you can become part of our amazing community and how that would benefit you, your business, and your career. So on that note, stay curious and keep raising the bar.